Good morning, friends. It is Wednesday, April the 8th, and a couple of housekeeping things. Yesterday, Dr. Hannaford sent everyone an email concerning grades for this semester, and it is very vital that you read the attachment, because the way this will work is at the end of the semester, I, as the teacher, or your teachers, will post grades as normal, A, B, C, D, F. At that time, and there's a date on that letter, at that time, you can go in and make the decision, do you want to change your letter grade to a, if you made an A through a D, you have the option of changing it just to a pass, which does not affect GPA. If you made an F, you have the choice to change the F to a not pass, an NP, and that doesn't affect your GPA. If you take the not pass, it's just like failing a class. You do have to retake the class if it is required for your degree, but it is not affecting your GPA. So that is something that you will have to do in May after grades are posted. So that does not mean that your grades at spring break are what you get to go off of. That means that your current grade at the end of the semester, you can decide what you want to do from there. Now, for some of you guys, you want to choose your letter grade. Okay. For others, you may want to choose an NP or a pass. And so you have to decide that, visit with your advisor about it, on what's best for your major. And again, make sure you read the email and make sure that you're educated. So that's what I will say on that. Okay, 4.2, again, we talked about inverses in 4.1, and with 4.1, there was the quiz on WebAssign, so I'll go through those today. It was due last night at 11:59. So today we want to look at exponential functions. Now this will be, some of it will be a review because we have looked at exponents, but the thing we want to look at today is primarily exponentials as functions, and that changes some things a little bit. And I'm sorry, these are kind of wop-eyed on the page. The scanner did not scan straight this morning. So, okay, so an exponential function with a base of b is defined by f of x is equal to b to the x. Now, some restrictions for b. B has to be greater than 0, and it cannot be 1. Okay, so none of our bases will ever be negative because it's a function. The reason for that is because it's a function. X also has to be a real number, so we won't be working with any imaginary numbers. Now, the next thing is just evaluating exponential functions. So if you're given f of x is equal to 3 to the x, then you're just substituting in. So f of 2, you're substituting in 3 squared. F of negative 4. Okay. Remember, a negative exponent, it flips the fraction over to become positive on the bottom, and so we get 1 over 81. F to the 1/2, so 3 to the 1/2 power. Remember back from chapter P that we can rewrite roots by fractional exponents. So the base is 2, or the denominator is 2, so that means it's a square root, so we can put that into our calculator. And then we can do 3 of pi. Now this is one that you would have to use your calculator on, and a couple of things about your calculator. So you will either have a caret button, which is this little guy right here. It's an upside down little, I don't know what you call it, I don't know why it's called a caret button, but that's what the button would look like. Or on your calculator, you're going to have a y to the x button. So either one of those will give you an exponent. Okay, so you can do that for there. Now, we could also graph exponential functions. So when we graph exponential functions, there's going to be 2 different graphs going on. Okay, same shape, they're just going to be going different directions. And so it's all based on what your base is. So if your base is between 0 and 1, that means it's going to be decreasing from left to right. Okay, if your base is greater than 1, because remember, it has to be greater than 0 and it cannot be 1. If it's greater than 1, then it's going to increase from left to right. Now, if you'll notice, both of these go through 0, 1. And the reason for that is no matter what your base is, anything to the 0 power is equivalent to 1. Okay, anything to the 0 power is 1. So you'll always get 0, 1 as one of your points. And you'll also get 1b, whatever my base is. And the reason for that is base to the first power is always going to be my base. Now, there is no x-intercepts. These don't cross the x-axis unless they're shifted around. But this is with the general graph, and it's all based on what your base is. Okay, so if we look at the first one, okay, the first one is f of x is equal to 2 to the x. Okay, so pick x values. Again, you're guaranteed 0, 1, and 1b. And then I pick -1 to -2. Those same ones that we've been doing all semester long. You know that you can pick others. The thing about exponential functions is, think about when something is said that it grows exponentially. So if you breed rabbits, rabbit breeding sometimes grows exponentially because it does not take very long to get a litter of rabbits, and they breed like rabbits. So sometimes your rabbit population can grow exponentially, but there are other things that do grow exponentially. Okay, and so it gets really big really quick, and that's what that means, is it's going to go up really fast and it's going to go down really fast. Okay, so substitute into your function. So just evaluate your function, substituting in x. If you'll notice 1 and -1, you get 2 and 1/2. So they're just flipped over. Okay, 2 and -2, 4 and 1/4. Again, because that negative sign flips over that fraction. So when you graph it, we should have a graph that increases from left to right because my 2 is greater than 1. So it increases from left to right. The red marks on here are every 2 is 1. So I tried to make it a little bigger for you. Okay, the next one is f of x is equal to 1/2 to the x power. Okay, so here our base is between 0 and 1. So this is one that will decrease as you go from left to right. So the graph should decrease. Again, you're guaranteed the point 0, 1, and 1b. And then -1, 2, and -2. And again, you're just substituting into your function. And if you're raising it to a negative exponent, let me find my mouse. If you're raising it to a negative exponent, it flips the fraction over. So that's why 1/2 to the -1 power becomes 2. Okay, so along the same lines, we have what's called the natural exponential, and the natural exponential is the fastest growing exponential function. You can consider the function, it's e, it's called the number e, and there is part of the equation to get it is 1 + 1 over n to the n power. But there's also some calculus involved there, so some limits and different things. So instead of having to work the calculus, you have what's called the natural exponential function. And so it's f of x is equal to e to the x. So this is a calculator activity. So on your calculator, you want to look for your ln button on your calculator, and this is going to be the e to the x above it. Okay. This is what you're looking for there. So to get your e to the x, you have to push second and then ln, okay, on most calculators. Okay. So your natural exponential is an irrational number, okay, which means it can't be written as a fraction. It's used in applications that involve growth and decay. So we'll also see it in a section where we work on compounding interest and different things. So again, it gets really big really quick. So when you go to evaluate this, this is totally a calculator activity. So you're again evaluating e to some power. So e to the first power is 2.72. So if you put that into your calculator, most of the time you are just going to 2 decimal places. Okay, so rounding to 2 decimal places. So I put a couple of these in there. So I put an extra one in here. So e to the first is 2.72, but if we do e to the 10th, it goes to 22,000. So just going from 1 to 10 goes from 2 to 22,000. So again, that's why the calculator button was created. And so we don't have to do these by hand, thank goodness. And one thing to note, if it's a negative solution, if it's negative, so if you're plugging in a negative value, then your solution will be between 0 and 1. Okay, if you're plugging in a negative value, it doesn't mean your solution is negative. It's going to mean you're getting a value between 0 and 1. Okay, so that kind of sums up 4.2. On Friday, we will be having a 4.2, 4.3 quiz, so look for that. Hopefully you've looked at the week at a glance. The other thing to make sure of is that for some of you on WebAssign, your 2-week trial may be ending and it's going to say your grace period is up. But again, there should be that yellow button on the left-hand side that says start the trial over again. And that's how WebAssign is handling this. And so every 2 weeks, you've got to push that yellow button. If you're not getting that if you're not getting a yellow button, or you're not getting, or you're not being able to get back in, you're going to have to call customer support, because I don't know how to go from there. Okay, I've troubleshooting WebAssign as much as I can, but from that angle, I don't know how to restart your trial except hit the yellow button. So if you don't have a yellow button, you don't have that option, then I have emailed you and also posted the customer support line that you can call, and they can definitely help you out. So, okay, I hope you guys have a great day. The sun is shining here, and again, if you have questions, please reach out. Do not sit through this and have all these questions. Please reach out. I cannot say that enough. So if you are an athlete, I did do grade checks for you for your